Hello everyone, Loremaster of Sotek here, and it is finally time for me to start a series on my channel that I've been wanting to do for a super long time, but just could not get around to it to save my life for reasons. I don't think any of them are good reasons, but just reasons. So that, of course, as I'm sure you've noticed by the title, is a book review series. I want to talk about many different books that I have over there on my gigantic shelf. Many of them are Warhammer Fantasy books, many of them are Age of Sigmar books, and maybe even one day we might wander out of the Warhammer Fantasy or Warhammer, universe into other fantasy universes and check those out. But today's book, the first book I'm going to review, may be kind of coming out of left field for everyone, but it's called A Dynasty of Monsters by David Annandale. A Dynasty of Monsters. So this book came out, I want to say it was last year, but this book, as you could tell by the cover, if you know who this character is, this is Laukavai. So Laukavai is one of the special characters and kind of one of the big bads of the Soulblight Gravelords. And the Soulblight Gravelords, they are literally just the vampire counts of Age of Sigmar. They're practically the exact same. They have more stuff, but other than that, they have Manfred von Karstein, they have Neferata, they have zombies and skeletons and zombie dragons and terrorgeists and vampires and all the things you love and know about the vampire counts. But it's been expanded notably, and some elements of their army were shaved into their own unique factions, such as all the ghouls and the Strigoi became the flesh eater courts, and all of the spirits and ghosts became the night haunts. But for these guys, so it's mostly themed about kind of the vampires, vampire tier undead, and then like adjacent things. But Laukavai is one of the matriarchs of the 5 dynasties that you can find within the Soulblight Gravelords, which the dynasties are bloodlines from Warhammer Fantasy. So some of the bloodlines from Fantasy did not make the journey to Age of Sigmar, and they 3 of them were essentially 2 of them were moved around or replaced. So Laukavai is the matriarch of the Avengori Bloodline, and the Avengori are essentially vampires who, due to various reasons, have gone through a horrifying transformative process to make them as monstrous as a vampire possibly can be without just like turning into a chaos spawn. They are vampires who their upper body, their torso, imagine like a centaur. You have the upper body of a human, but in this case it's the upper body of a vampire, and then instead of the lower body being just a horse, it's an entire dragon. So it's this huge dragon bat hybrid scaly monster and it's got 4 extra limbs instead of the usual. When you see an Avengori, it can look a little weird at first because instead of it not having like the dragon's upper body and instead having the human upper body, as you can see with Laukavai, it's more like you expect the dragon's head to be here, and that's where the upper body comes out. But you can see it's got like the two big wing limbs, and then it's got 2 big legs and a big tail. But you can kind of think of them like the Strigoi in a sense from Warhammer Fantasy, in that they are the bloodline that sort of represents giving in to your monstrous nature, turning into a horrifying, nightmarish beast that has no qualms about devouring everything in sight. However, Laukavai is a very interesting character within the Avengori because she struggles very, very hard to keep herself and her fellow Vengorian lords, which are what her species specifically within the bloodline is. The Vengorian lords are the big bads, and they have the centaur design, but she tries to keep them sane. So basically, she has a very strong code of ethics and a series of laws that she enforces and follows that she believes keeps them from just, being completely lost to their animalistic nature, and allows them to be prideful in their monstrosity, to embrace their monstrosity without losing themselves to it, which is a very, very interesting idea. And it is a struggle for them. And that's something the book talks about or focuses on quite a bit, is that the Avengorian lords really are struggling to not lose themselves to, you know, a red mist and just want to kill everything around them and eat everybody. But what this book is actually about is it's not about Laukavai, so to speak. It just heavily involves Laukavai. And what it is that the Avengori live in the realm of Gur. They live in this like really super cool kind of underground cavern city thing. And there is a free city very nearby them called the Colonnade. And the free city of the Colonnade is this city of Sigmar that was very cleverly engineered so that the city was built on these like really big pillars that have these kind of elevator systems. And the pillars lead really, really high up where there's all these giant platforms. And because of that, they are basically able to keep all of the monsters and the very land of Gur itself from just raising up and smashing them, because their platform is so high up that the land of Gur just can't reach it. And they're able to defend themselves much more effectively from invasions and monsters. But this book covers that this takes place before the start of 3rd edition. So the era of the beast has not begun yet in Age of Sigmar. This is sometime between the era of the beast and the Necroquake. From what little clues we have in the book, it seems to take place much later in 2nd edition, but it is definitely before the start of 3rd edition. But in any event, basically there is this giant bray herd of Tzeentchian beastmen. And it's not just like Zongors, it's much, much more than that. But it's just a huge beastman army that is led by a Tzeentchian beast lord and also has a ton of Zongors. But it's like a full bray herd, like a Warhammer Fantasy bray herd plus all the Zongors from Age of Sigmar. So you're dealing with Cygors and Gorgons and Minotaurs, chariots and Doom Bulls and all this great Bray Shamans, just all your favorite Beastie Boys. And they're led by this really terrifying, super powerful Tzeentch Beast Lord named Orgo. And he is basically making his way towards the Colonnade to smash and destroy the city. However, the Avengori are very aware of his existence because their whole thing is Laukavai tries really hard to keep the Avengori from eating the people of Gur. Like, she tries not to eat the forces of order, essentially. She doesn't want them feasting on humans or elves or dwarfs. She wants them feasting on animals, monsters, and servants of chaos. That way, they're essentially like good guy vampires. They have a very strict code of honor, and they, you know, they don't like the people of order, but they also find them useful in that they can negotiate with them on some other stuff. They don't like tolerate chaos. So you have this. The Avengori are very aware of the fact that this bray herd is so big and so scary that potentially it could kill both of them. It could wipe out the Colonnade and it could wipe out the Avengori. So separately, both sides, or at least an individual in both factions, comes to the idea that, okay, individually we're going to get completely smashed by this beast herd. So why don't we combine our power? That way the two of us can work side by side to, ward off destruction. We can defeat Orgo together instead of dying separately. Obviously, that's not going to be easy because you have this city of Sigmar worshippers who very deeply pride themselves on being kind of this civilized, pure civilization in the heart of Gur, which is, of course, the realm of beasts. Meanwhile, the Avengori are the concept of giving into monstrosity made manifest. So they're very not on the same page. You might even say they're on completely opposite pages. They have fought in the past, and you're just dealing with the situation of humans trying to negotiate with vampires, which is never easy. So the book is pretty much revolves around this attempted alliance and whether the humans can set aside their fear and their prejudice enough to work with the vampires, and if the Avengori can resist their monstrous nature and their bloodlust well enough to work with the humans. And all the meantime, you have this Zinchian horde of beastmen coming down on them. And I gotta say, this book is amazing. I cannot express easily how much I was blown away by this book. And unlike a lot of mediums, I can be rather picky when it comes to my Warhammer novels. I tend to have a higher standard than I do for most forms of entertainment. But this book, oh my God, it is so good. The plot is fantastic. All of the different little themes are very, very nice. All the setups get paid off, which is something that a lot of authors, in my experience, are kind of terrible about, is making sure they actually like give you a payoff for everything they set up. This book sticks every single landing. It does not, like, anytime something happens and you go, man, I really wonder how that's going to end, you will get your answer to that question. And I love that. Instead of, there have been some books I've read, especially old fantasy books, but even some Age of Sigmar books, where they do not, that does not happen. But the fight scenes are extremely well written. And not only do we get a number of really well done one-on-one fights, you know, where you're watching the battle from a single character's perspective and they're fighting a particularly nasty opponent or something, but we also get some really excellent huge fight scenes where you have entire armies colliding against one another, which I absolutely love. That it's not necessarily a requirement for a Warhammer novel, but it really helps, especially when you're dealing with like a really big scary special character, to let us see them in their element and show us why this character is one of the biggest, baddest people of their group. And this book does that beautifully with Laukavai. Despite the fact she's not actually the main character by any stretch of the imagination, she's more of this. One thing I really enjoyed about this book is that when it comes to special character books, I have found in my experience, there are essentially two philosophies on how to write a book about a special character, because there are some restrictions, right? You can't kill the character in the vast majority of cases, because it is a character that has an active ongoing story in the tabletop. And Games Workshop also has an unfortunate obsession with the idea that every single character that's playable in tabletop and has a model has to be alive, which is something that I really think they should ditch, because I think it's much more interesting to have characters allowed to die, but you know, you keep their stories around and such and talk about the consequences of their death. But in any event, for these books, you can't kill a character, so there's no actual danger of the character dying, right? So how do you tell a story and generate drama without being able to genuinely threaten that character in a meta sense? Now, personally, for me, I don't have a problem with when they pretend like the character's in danger. I will still take it seriously as a reader, because it's very easy for me to immerse myself. But for a lot of people, that can be kind of a difficult noise in the back of their head to tune out. Is, you know, I know this character's not going to die, so why are you pretending like they're at risk? But so generally, the two philosophies I've noticed is that the book will either be from the character's perspective. So for instance, like the Sigvald, the Valkia, or the Egram von Horseman books, for instance, are all from those characters' perspectives, along with some other side characters. But it's the story, as far as like how it builds suspense and everything like that, is what's going to happen to the characters around the main character, whether they are their enemies or friends or lovers or what have you. So the suspense and the drama comes from watching how that special character deals with all of everything going on around them. But they are the main character. Whereas the other system, which I have seen much more often in the new Age of Sigmar Black Library books, which is what they do in this book, and I think is my preferred, is that the special character is a side character in the book. So we get to see them quite a bit and really watch them do what they do best, but you never get a part where it is from their perspective, because their perspective is, depending on the character. In Lauka Vai's case, I think the main reason is that she's so ancient and powerful and terrifying that, you know, you kind of don't need to see from her perspective, because it adds much more to her the character's weight and drama, to kind of have her be this enigmatic, terrifying creature that you see a ton of, but you never actually get to know what's going on in her head. You get to guess what's going on in her head with the characters around her, where the book is actually focused. But in any event, one thing that that's the system this book chooses, but this book did it really, really well. One thing I want to be clear about is I've seen some authors do a really shit job of that, and I don't want to like ever make one of these reviews where I'm like, oh, this author is terrible, because, you know, people can have a bad story, or there could be something about a story that I don't like, but that doesn't necessarily mean the story itself is bad. I just didn't appreciate it. But like a good example is there's a book I will review another time that has a special character in it, and the special character is on the front cover, and the book advertises itself on the fact that the special character is in the book. And then when you read the book, the special character does not show up until the very, very end, or like 50 to 75% of the way through the book, and you see barely any of them. Like it's so rare to see them. And in my experience, that tends to be because the special character is the antagonist of the book, or the major villain. So you just don't really get to see them, because when they do show up, they're too busy, like, you know, destroying everything. And in my experience, it's just not great. I think that's a really bad way to do it, because I would much rather just be with that character the entire time, in some way, shape, or form. This book, although Lauka Vai is not the main character, she is all over the goddamn place. I think she shows up in chapter 4, but you get to meet her very quickly, and you see her a lot, and you get to see her interact with so many different characters. I think every single character in the book at least gets to see and react to her, and the vast majority of the characters in the book get to actually talk to her on multiple occasions, and it is so good. Oh my god, it is so good. I will say, I guess I'll do like a 5-star rating system for books. This is a 5 out of 5. Easy 5 out of 5. This is a 5 out of 5 fucking gold stars. 5 stars, just stars, 5, all the stars, so many stars. I love this book. I highly recommend this book. If you are a fan of vampire counts or vampires in general, if you're a fan of the Free Cities of Sigmar, Stormcast Eternals, Beastmen, if you're a fan of any of those factions, this book is going to blow your goddamn mind. Even if you're not a fan of those factions, this book is just so fun. It has a fascinating plot that has some really interesting twists, a lot of brilliant payoffs, a lot of great fight scenes, and that is basically going to end my thoughts as far as the non-spoiler part. I will very briefly talk about some spoiler things here in just a moment, but yeah, so if you don't want to stick around for spoilers, like I said, I highly recommend this book. I think it's in softback now, and you can also, I'm pretty sure there's an ebook version as well, but Dynasty of Monsters by David Annandale. Very, very good. Easy recommend. You should get this. So, real quick, I am going to talk about some spoilers. So if you do not want to be spoiled, which I would highly recommend not being spoiled, so go read the book and come back or something. Or maybe I almost wonder if I should make like a separate video to, you know what, how about we do this? I think what I'm going to do is, instead of just talking about spoilers on this video, I am going to do a stream at some point after I release this video, like probably like a week, and I will put out a post on the community tab here on YouTube, as well as my Twitter and Discord. I think I want to give everyone a chance to read this book and then just do a stream where we talk about it and its spoilers, because it is that good and that worth doing. So yeah, I think we're gonna do that instead, because I don't really want to get into the spoilers, because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like it's better to have a discussion about it instead of just saying everything I think about it and then never really talking about it again. So please consider picking it up. I will be spamming this out in a few places for anyone that's maybe interested in checking it out. But we just keep an eye on this channel. I'll probably try and give everyone maybe 1 or 2 weeks to get through it. It's not a crazy long book. You know, it's got pretty good sized text, and it's like 260 pages. So probably, you know, we'll play it by ear. But thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys for more stuff soon.